Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is forget. Let's take a look at some of the ways we use the verb forget. The first definition for this verb is to mean to fail to remember. Happens to everybody. A second way we use the verb forget is to mean to inadvertently, so not on purpose, to inadvertently neglect to do something, to bring something, or to mention something. So this is probably a phrase you've heard somebody say, right? Oh, I forgot to bring you a copy of the article I said I would. I forgot to tell you this piece of information, right? That gets to the second definition of the verb. A third way we use the verb forget is to intentionally, so this is on purpose, put something out of one's mind. Said another way, this means we are intentionally trying to stop thinking about someone or something. Forget is an irregular verb. To make the progressive tense, I need to add a second T because this verb ends with a consonant, vowel, consonant, before I add ing. So you can see there I've added a second T and then the ing to make forgetting. The past tense form of this verb is pronounced forgot. We change the E to an O. And then the participle form of this verb is forgotten. Let's take a look now at some phrasal verbs that are connected to our verb of the day, forget. And there's really only one phrasal verb that we're going to talk about, and it's forget about. And this can have a couple different meanings. The first meaning really ties back to some of the main definitions we looked at just a moment ago. So that first meaning for forget about is to not think about someone or something, or to disregard. So again, this is more that intentional. I am not going to think about you, or I'm not going to think about this thing. So to disregard someone or something. So let's take a look at this particular meaning in an example sentence. Please don't forget about us after you move. Right? So this is telling someone not to stop thinking about another maybe set of friends or colleagues after that person moves. A second way to use forget about is to mean to not expect someone or something to work, or to not expect something to happen. Or instead of third way, maybe you are not expecting someone to do something. So sometimes this forget about has a bit of a sarcastic sound to it. So let's take a look at this particular usage in a sentence. Forget about going swimming today. It's going to rain all day. So again, someone is expressing, don't expect to go swimming today. It's not going to stop raining. Let's continue to practice using our verb of the day, forget, in some different verb tenses. Today we'll start with imperatives. You might know this as commands. And really what we're telling someone is to do something. And what's unique about the imperative is that we do not have a stated subject, right? A he, a she, they, you, something like that at the beginning of our sentence. Our sentences can actually just start with the verb. And that's because the subject is implied. And it's either you singular if you're talking to one person, or you plural if you're talking to a group of people. So let's look at an affirmative example using our verb forgot. Forget about what I said. So here, someone is commanding someone not to remember. Another phrase that would have a similar meaning as to the sentence, never mind. Something either has changed or maybe the person misspoke, made a kind of an accident, right? And so they're just saying, forget what it was that I said earlier. If I want to make a negative command, I want to start with do not and then the base verb. Now you might hear native speakers use the contraction form don't. So we'll take a look at a negative imperative sentence. Don't forget to water the plants. So again, here you're telling someone maybe they're going to watch your house while you travel a bit. So you're asking them to remember to do this particular activity. We don't have a question format for the imperative, so we can go to present progressive. We use this verb tense to talk about things that are happening now or that are in progress. To make the affirmative form of the present progressive, we want to use a present form of be and then the ing or progressive form of the verb. Let's take a look at an affirmative example. He's forgetting things all the time. So this, unfortunately, could be describing someone who's a little bit older and perhaps not well. And this is something we should all kind of pay attention to so that we can tell our doctors if we notice this. This could be a sign or a symptom of another illness. If I want to make a negative present progressive sentence, all I need to do is add not after the be verb. So we'll take a look at an example here. They aren't forgetting about their goals. If I want to make a yes or no question in the present progressive, I'm going to start with a form of be that matches our subject, that comes next, and then the ing form of the verb. Are we forgetting anything? Next, let's take a look at the simple future. Today, as we practice simple future, we're going to use will and then the base verb. Let's take a look at an example sentence. Hiroshima survivors worry that the world will forget. So we can see there the base verb used with will. Now, perhaps this sentence might not make a lot of sense to you, but last week we had an anniversary of an atomic bomb being dropped on the city of Hiroshima in Japan. And what this sentence is suggesting is that the survivors are worried that as the years go by, people around the world are going to forget how horrible the effects of that atomic bomb were on the people. If I want to make a negative sentence in the simple future using will, I'm just going to insert not after will, and then I'll have my base verb. You might hear native speakers use the contraction form won't. Here's an example of that. Many people say they won't forget 2020. Kind of a promise there when we're using the future. Lastly, let's take a look at making a yes or no question in the simple future. We're going to start with will, then we'll have our base verb. We'll start with will, then our subject, then the base verb. My apologies. Will he forget to bring in the mail? Okay. Next, let's take a look at some words that are related to our verb forget. The first is an adjective, forgetful, and it means likely not to remember. So we might use this adjective to describe a person or maybe more than one, so to describe many people. So let's take a look at an example sentence. His boss is so forgetful. He has to constantly remind his boss about upcoming due dates. So again, what we're describing here is the boss is not likely to remember some important dates that perhaps projects are due, or maybe dates when they're having meetings, things like that. So the reminder is to help the person remember. The next adjective we'll take a look at is forgettable. It's an adjective, and we might use it to describe a thing or an event, and it means easily forgotten. Especially, maybe the reason something is easily forgotten is that it's uninteresting or it's just ordinary. There's nothing notable that makes it stand out, that makes it something you will remember. Let's take a look at an example of that in a sentence. That book was forgettable. So the person might be saying that it was uninteresting, or maybe it was so similar to other books the person has read. So what they're really saying is, I'm not going to remember anything special about this particular book. The last related word we're going to look at today is also an adjective, and it's unforgettable. Now, since we just talked about the adjective forgettable, you can probably figure out what unforgettable means. And that un prefix always means not. So the definition for this adjective is impossible to forget or very memorable. And I actually saw this word being used quite a lot when referencing a rather famous actor who has passed away in the last week. So let's take a look at an example of unforgettable in a sentence. Chadwick Boseman's performance in Black Panther was unforgettable. So Chadwick Boseman was an actor who unfortunately died in the last week. He was the star of the movie Black Panther. It's an action movie that was very important because really the first time that there was a African American or Black superhero. So this particular acting performance was thought to be exceptional, and it was important for a lot of people to see someone who looks like them representing this kind of special power superhero type thing. So I hope this word, forget, won't be forgettable for you. And I also hope that you have a great